Welcome to Short and to the Point, a podcast from the Comeback in Awful Announcing. Here's your host, Jessica Kleinschmidt.
Hi, everyone, and happy Thanksgiving week. Jess Kleinschmidt here for Short and to the Point on Awful Announcing and the Comeback. So excited to be, we're like mid-season for NFL, and everything is getting real now, y'all. We're talking about heading toward, we have the playoff pushes, we have everything coming up. I couldn't think of a better guest for this week's show than former NFL and USC quarterback Sean Salisbury. He, of course, is the host of the Sean Salisbury Show on Sports Talk 790 in Houston. He's helped me so much over the years. Very quick reply when I have a football question. And my football questions aren't about plays necessarily. They're just these nuanced questions. I remember once I asked him, what's the longest football play you ever had to remember or memorize? And he wrote me this very lengthy text about an extremely long football play that he had to endure and be the play caller for in the pocket. And now he's doing a lot of media stuff, formed long relationships with people both in and around the media. You guys might know him from his relationship with John Clayton, the OGs of the sports debate. I also asked him about Stroud, who is very much in the MVP talk conversation, making everybody fall in love with him there in Houston. And before he pressed record, he even said sports in Texas. Texas is a football state, but Houston is a baseball town. So he also talks everything Astros over there on his show. And without further ado, here's my chat with Sean. Well, my friend Sean joins us here. Sean, thanks for stopping by Short and to the Point. Great to have you.
Jess, it's great to be with you. Thanks for inviting me on.
Of course. There's something that I've always wanted to ask you because you've seen so many different aspects to the game of football and especially the quarterback position. And I'm talking beyond just the monetary value, the contracts these guys are given. But from when you started to just analyzing the guys in the pocket, what have you noticed some of the big changes over the years?
Well, I think it used to be, I mean, I'm 6'5". It used to be, and I was big before big was big. Now it's trans. We got guys that are my size that run like 4'5". It's crazy. And they can play, they're built, they're 250, that are built like an outside linebacker. They're playing quarterback. I'll tell you what the truth is, what for me noticing it is how versatile they've become to be able to expand the play yet still beat you from the pocket. I'm still a big believer. If you say, Sean, you're evaluating, you're going to draft the guy. Do you want a guy who can be who beats you off schedule first and then mixes in the pocket, or the other way around where you throw from the pocket on time with accuracy and anticipation and process information, and then the guy who can escape? And I'll take that guy any day of the week because, Jess, when you look over the course of time, maybe if we go back to Russ Wilson when he was in Seattle, won that Super Bowl, and he was learning to become more of a pocket guy and got better. But from Steve Young and John Elway to Joe Burrow getting into the Super Bowl to Mahomes, all these great players, that they still beat you from what I call the hula hoop in the pocket. You have to be able to deliver the ball from there because at some point in time, that's where you're going to win. And our Super Bowl champions, like Steve Young, people talk about, well, he was so athletic. Now, if Steve was playing in this time, I'm not sure he wouldn't be the most unstoppable player on the planet because he was accurate from the pocket and a true pocket guy. But he could do what all these guys are doing now, and he was physical. So I think what I've noticed is, and sometimes you can teach pocket presence, and some guys like Joe Burrow just have it, or C.J. Stroud. They just have an understanding of what it's like. But I think the biggest difference of the position is what we looked at 10 years ago and said that won't work in the NFL has completely flipped the script. That not only does it work in the NFL, we want Caleb Williams. We want the off-schedule sidearm guy. But in the end, the Super Bowl this year, the Super Bowl next year, it's going to be a guy who can deliver it on time with accuracy and then extend as opposed to the other way around. I still believe that processing information and throwing accurately have to, and elevating the guys around you are part of it. And I'm telling you right now, Dan Fouts told me years ago, leadership, we talk about, it comes in sizes, in different shapes and sizes. He said the best leader at this position stands in the pocket. He told me this, like I can remember it as I'm sitting here today. And he was as tough a pocket guy as we ever had. Stand in the pocket, deliver the ball, staring down the gun barrel when you're going to get right in the mouth. Now, the rules have changed. I don't let you hit you in the mouth, but that's the quickest way to earn respect and leadership from your teammates. not a 400-yard passing game. So still got to deliver it there. But the athleticism and off-schedule stuff that we're doing now and the ability of offensive coordinators to say, we're not going to do the normal stuff, Mike McDaniel or Kyle Shannon. We're going to do all kinds of different stuff to give you different looks, Andy Reid, and look at the results. Pretty impressive. But you still better throw on time with accuracy. You can't win in this league.
And that's so interesting. Do you think the young guys are embracing that? Because I know you can utilize the different stuff. You mentioned versatility is something that's certainly more highlighted. So are the young guys embracing the fact that you still have to have that old school mentality when it comes to the quarterback position?
Such a fantastic point, because we're getting to the point. I see it all the time, and I train quarterbacks all over the country, and I watch different trainers. And even when I get to these guys, you know what they want to do? Young quarterbacks. You'll come up and we'll start working. They want to throw off, the sidearm off schedule stuff. And I say, listen, guys, what you see Mahomes do, first of all, isn't the norm. This guy's a friggin' freak show. Yeah. But still, if you look at their games, he hits the bubble screen. I'm really big on quarterbacks making the ordinary play all the time. Mm-hmm. Brock Purdy, for instance. He's limited in his size. He's not going to throw it as far as Josh Allen does. But watch him play. I don't know why we continue to resist. If he was the third pick of the draft as opposed to the last pick of the draft with the way he's playing, we'd be talking about, the 49ers got their next Steve. That's how people would be talking, their next great 49er quarterback. The stigma that follows him around because he doesn't match the what we want from a seventh, the seventh round last pick of the draft. Yet, what's he do? Accurate, on-time, process information. Not in that particular order, process first and gets it done. I do think they're embracing, this goes full circle, Jess. A lot of times we'll see a 3-4 to a 4-3. We'll see a pocket guy that we want the versatility. But if you notice when it's getting right down to it, what do? Drop back in the pocket. These coordinators want you to throw the slant, the flat route. Make the ordinary play. The best ordinary playmakers in the world were Brady, Breeze, Warren Moon, Peyton Manning. They made the flat route, the under 12-yard throw, look ordinary. If you make it look too hard, which some of us did when we were playing, it doesn't quite work out. So I think they are embracing it, but I'll train young quarterbacks that want to work all this off schedule. I say, let's do this first and let the natural ability take over. And with that arm strength, your ability to move. But the way we're training them now, I'll have just off schedule hours where we'll go out and we'll just do blitz pickup, throwing off balance and do it. But one thing we can't lose sight of, and these kids, and I'm a preacher of it, and I think they do, watching guys like Williams or Drake May, or the way that the most underrated yet best quarterback this year all year long has been Jaden Daniels in LSU, is that they understand for the big picture of you want to get paid to do it, you better be able to deliver it from here. And I think most of our teachers and coaches get that, and they do embrace it. But the way we're training them is we can't lose sight of the fact that you still got to make it from a clean pocket. Mm-hmm. We get caught up in all the hype, and people do. Well, look at Mahomes. Yeah, but go back and study him. He's not making 40 of those a game. He's making 2 or 3, but he's not throwing it to the other team. Sometimes it's what you don't do, not what you do. Throw the ball into the stands on third down. We'll punt and live to play another down. As long as guys can embrace that you don't have to have the hero syndrome, which I think a lot of us, we all try to embrace that, hit a home run in the bottom of the ninth instead of play gap to gap and drive a running and let's get this thing rolling. And so I think most do, but I don't think we're ever going to lose sight of the fact that timing and accuracy is always going to be the number one thing that these quarterback coaches and trainers and head coaches want from their quarterback.
That's good. And, before we press record, you mentioned, what Stroud is doing. And of course you're in Houston. That's your hub. What makes him the real deal?
I'm the thing. Remember the testing that talked about the cognitive test everybody said he didn't do well on? I don't believe the Texans subscribe to that. Everybody doesn't. Some people aren't great test takers. Somebody aren't. I think going in, well, you can't do it. The guy doesn't process information. And you know what his biggest strength is? He's processing information. It's like this 49er system that Bobby Sloak and DeMeco Ryans have brought have been nothing short of fantastic for him. It like fits. I don't know why we're shocked the guy's throwing it. He's done it since Rancho Cucamonga in high school. He did it at Ohio State for 2 years. He threw it as well as anybody in America, and he's doing it at this level. Now, it shouldn't be this – it's not this easy, but he sure makes it look like this is easy. But 9 games in, 10 games in, I was fortunate to play against the Marinos in that era, and watching these guys all the way through from Aikman to Manning, nobody this quickly has thrown the ball this aggressively with this kind of accuracy down the field and underneath, and quite frankly, has completely changed the team around. There's guys who gone through bad rookie years, went on to the Hall of Fame, and I'm not putting him in the Hall of Fame, but I can tell you this, that it is rare to see what you're seeing. And he also has played with a 4-string center. Mm-hmm. They got to make shift. They've had injuries all year long, and the guy is elevating the guys around him. And to me, when you maximize the building, you're a better player. He's doing everything and then some. Nobody expected this. You hoped you were going to get a good player. He's in the MVP talk. If they make the playoffs and this continues, I don't see how he can't be in the final 3 for crown that guy. They get to 10 wins. He probably should be the MVP of the league.
Yeah, he's definitely entering the conversation, and that's great. And when I asked about him, the first thing you mentioned was processing information. Why is that such an imperative characteristic for a successful quarterback?
When people ask me, Sean, would you rather have the guy who can throw it 80 yards, or have the guy who can throw it accurately 20 yards and 10 yards and 5 yards and make good decisions? Give me that guy all day. Listen, arm strength on my traits falls about 5th or 6th. I'm assuming when you get to the league that you can make every throw.
Like,
now,
you can throw. You're in the league.
That's exactly right, Jed. Right. I mean, listen, I know you can throw it. Now, the question is, if you got to fit it into a coffee can size window, right? That's where the Brett Favre fastball, as opposed to the Drew Brees fastball, makes up for it. But when I got a guy who may not have a strong arm, it's a decent arm, but as far as compared to some of the NFL arms like Mahomes or Allen or Favre, I teach my guys to, or even if you do have that kind of arm. I have one kid who's a monster talent going to Wisconsin. We train as if he doesn't have a strong arm. And you know what that does? Mm-hmm. It teaches him to throw with urgency and on time, instead of the tendency for strong arm guys. And when I was growing up, same way, is wait till the window shows, then throw it. As you continue to progress through college, high school to college to pro, you can't wait till that window is open, because by the time the ball comes out, even if you throw it 150 miles an hour, it's going to close. It's like in baseball. If they're sitting dead red and they're throwing 102, but the ball doesn't move and they're throwing it down the middle, they're going to hit it. Same thing here. You're late. You're going to miss your window no matter how strong your arm is. So the reason that processing of information, it allows me to understand the first read and know where I'm going with the football. That's what made Brady so good. He knew pre-snap with all the studying, process it. They play cover 2 80% of the time in the red zone. I'm probably going to get a cover 2 look. If I don't, I'll process it real quick. I'll come down. We'll hit a check down. I'll throw it out of the end zone. We'll kick a field goal. We'll tee it up next time. Somebody's going to guess right. But the processing of information, now allows you to see blitzes and where it's coming. Now it gives me a head start in throwing to the guy. And if you throw with it urgency and on time, I never use the word hurried, but with accuracy, you now anticipate and throw to grass. These guys got to learn to throw to grass and trust 1, 2, 3 balls out. My receiver will run through that window. So when you teach them, they don't have to see the 2 eyes of the receiver to throw it. That's their job to get there. Your job is to throw it on time. But if you don't know, as Denny Green used to say, God rest his soul, who to get and how to get them, if you don't know who to get, how to get them, you're going to be late. So if I miss the first window, I'm already late to the second window, and then I'm already late to the third window, and now I'm taking sacks because I'm taking 3 or 4 hitches, and I can't hold the ball that long. So, and in 2.5 seconds, that's a fast time to throw it to the right guy, and with accuracy, you must process first. If football IQ is not part of your thinking as a quarterback, you probably won't last very long in the league as a starter and sustain success.
I'm glad you brought that up. I don't think we talk about the IQ part of it enough. I want to shift gears to Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, he suffered an Achilles injury. I've never I can deal with an Achilles injury and how it pertains to a baseball player. I've seen it quite a bit. But when it comes to a quarterback, how does that hinder your performance?
Big time. I shredded my knee twice in college at SC, and at that time, we were still wearing plaster casts from toes to groin, right? And you had to cut a little hole in it, put the muscle stem in there so it wouldn't atrophy. Now, I had knee replacement a couple of years ago, and I was literally 2 hours after surgery walking down the hallway. You got a hinge at the brace on, and you're going, it's like, damn, this has changed. And at that point in time, it's like, oh, an ACL, man, dude, what are you going to do about your career? Now those guys are so freakish. They're coming back in 7, 8 months. I contend that Achilles is worse than a knee injury nowadays. Mm-hmm. And when I hear that Aaron Rodgers says he's going to play the show, I love Aaron. I think he is along with Marino, I've never seen, maybe Joe Namath early. I'm talking about release and quicker, the way the ball comes out. I can't there is no way that guy takes a snap this year. With an Achilles, I mean, I've never seen a guy in my life, and I've been around him, come back 4 months after an Achilles. If he does, he's even more freaky than I thought. But the ability, because one thing about it is, and it's that feeling of, okay, because you still, it's like when you ride motorcycles, or you're a motorcycle jumper, you're jumping out of a plane, a paratrooper. You got to practice somewhere. It's not your first, it's like where you practice. Same thing with this. That first movement after you're injured, that confidence getter, like, can I make that quick twitch without blowing it out again? Even though doctors will tell you can, there's that feeling of, man, that tissue, and can I do it? So I think he's going to come back fully healthy and ready to go 2024. I can't fathom. And those poor Jets with that piss-poor offense they got to deal with, because they're a Super Bowl team with him. But as freakish as he is, I think, and the ability to move quick and the urgency of the boom, boom, reset, and throw can become a problem. But once you get full healthy again, look at Kevin Durant in the NBA. He had he's recovered. It just takes a little longer, and I personally think it takes longer than the knee does.
Okay.
And I think it's a very, very difficult injury. I don't think there's a chance in hell he plays this year, but I expect him fully back and being in an MVP conversation next year in 2024. It just sucks that we had to see it at that stage of the game. Those are bad injuries.
Well, and talk to me a little bit about how his mentality could be watching it from the sidelines. You mentioned that piss poor offense and how the Jets are struggling in that aspect of the game. Put yourself in his shoes, watching it, struggling,
right.
knowing you can't make an impact right now.
Right. I would imagine for us mere mortals that we're like, you're rooting on the guy. There's probably that human nature that says they can't win without me, meaning Aaron Rodgers, that he's damn near correct. They're not winning much without him, and knowing his teammates crave him. But I'm sure he's talking with Zach on a regular basis in the quarter to try and he knows his job's not in jeopardy. So as I was kidding, you're trying to get these guys feeling good heading through this year in 2024, because they have a Super Bowl defense, and Garrett Wilson can play, and Brees Hall. They're loaded with talent, and I like Robert Saleh. And Aaron Rodgers, what he can do is he can make up for a lot of bad quarterback coach calls or offensive coordinator calls that if we call something bad as a coach, he can fix it. That's another thing about that IQ and processing. Is that guy, oh, okay, here's what he meant. This doesn't match up against this. I'll make a good decision. We'll come back and tee it up. I think it's got to be brutal on him, especially all the offseason expectations going into this year. And then in the opener, with all that hype to have that happen, it sucked for everybody. But for even the teams that got to play against him, although I'm sure the East is like, thank goodness I don't have to deal with that guy this year. But he is the one reason why I think he's one of those guys that loves it when you say he can't. Mm-hmm. Some people say they do. I actually think he cherishes it and feeds off, oh, I can't, I'll see you in March. Oh, I can't, I'll be in the MVP talk. Oh, I can't, I'm going to take the Jets to a Super Bowl. So I don't doubt anything he does, but I know the competitor. Hell, it's hard for Brady right now or Greg Olsen to sit and watch, because you never get to do it again once you walk away from it. And that competitive fire that makes Rodgers and Brady and these guys who leave great is the very same thing that drives them crazy, because they can't grasp it. You feel helpless because you can't put your hand on the football and go do it. Brady's retired and Rodgers hurt. I'm sure it sucks to have to watch it, but I'm sure deep down where people don't talk about in his soul, he's thinking, wait till they get a load of me in 2024, which would be human nature and understandable. But I feel bad watching that offense play, but I got news for you. Don't feel too bad for him, because when Rodgers is back next year, it's going to be brutal to have to deal with that team.
You mentioned the frustrations that Brady and Greg Olsen would be feeling watching that. When you retired, did you have that same mentality? Was the media already lined up for you and coaching, or were you? What was your mentality when you had to hang up your cleats?
Well, I would imagine for each end of it, it's all relative. For those guys, they're thinking, well, I'm a Hall of Famer, I'm going to get another ring. For me, it's like 10 years of it. I'd love to be, for different reasons. More people care about Rodgers and Brady retire than me, but in my own little world, I'll tell you when I knew too, Jess. I was driving out to practice in the spring after my 10th year. We were going out to like mini camp. Oh, the off-season workouts. Mm-hmm. And I walked into the gate and I thought, and I'm a football and a sports junkie, but I thought, this feels like work. And that's the first time I ever said that. And I thought, when that starts to happen, because I had a broadcast journalism degree and I'd worked stuff in the off-season. I knew what I think I wanted to do. But you'll never get it back. You never get that locker room competitive. Once you leave that, it's not, maybe if you're a coach, but you never get that. Even a coach doesn't get to put his hands on the football and go play. It was tough. And for the first 3 years, and I had, Minnesota had called me back, but I promised myself and my family when I walked away, I wasn't going to be maybe tempted. I was not coming back. Now, they're not craving for me like they were Brady, but and ironically, 2 years in a row in Minnesota, they got hurt and I knew the system. So Brian Billick and Denny had called and said, Sean, you want to come back? And I said, I'm tempted, but I can't. I promised myself I wouldn't. Now I think back, man, milking another 3 or 4 years out of it would have been cool. But for the Rodgers and those type of the Greg Olsons who are broadcasting every day and knows he could still play and at a high level, or Tom Brady, it's got to be tough, especially when you know you're in Aaron's case. It's winding down. Even if he has 3 great years, now we're pushing mid-40s. At some point, it comes to an end, even though he could probably still play. But it was hard because you think you know what you want to do next, but you don't know because it's what we've been doing our whole life. And so I tried to be pretty well-rounded. So the transformation, and I quit playing in June. August, ESPN hired me. So I was 2 months. So I hit the ground running and was doing college football and NFL Live 6 months after that in Sports Center. So I was fortunate, but I know a lot of guys don't know what they want to do. And then 2 or 3 years removed, they're missing the competition. You're like, now I got to go be an entry-level worker somewhere at 35 when you were a star in your sport, if you're Aaron Rodgers or Brady. But that star stuff continues for them. But it great competitors, which I still think that I am. I'll always miss it. I don't miss the hits, and I don't miss that. I do miss lining up and putting in a game plan and playing chess against the opponent. Yeah. And I think you always will. And hence why guys like Brady and Aaron Rodgers do it for a long period of time, and they don't want to leave it. I don't blame them.
Let's continue on the media aspect of your career, because when it comes to sports debate, you're one of the poster children of it, you and John Clayton. Right. Before we get into this sports debate topic, I know you were very, very close to Clayton, but what's it like being a friend of John Clayton?
I'm still, very few days go by, Jess, that I'm not still heartbroken over it. I can remember who I got the call from. A couple friends called, but the first one to contact, I was coaching a football camp last year, not this past summer, the summer, but spring before. And Chris Mortensen called me. Mort and I are still tight. And he goes, I think he said, first, are you sitting down? I said, yeah. He goes, I had heard from that he wasn't doing well. Yet I see John and I would go on each other's show every week. So it was only a couple of weeks since I hadn't talked to him. But I had heard that, because his wife, John, is such a, let me just put it to you this for people who don't know John Clayton. If you called him up and said, John, I'm in the middle of the country, I need you to come here. I have an appearance, and I can't do it without you. It's 5, whatever. Somehow, some way, the guy would either find a way to do it or tell you why. I mean, why he could. He's the reason 4 downs worked. I mean, I know I think, no disrespect to the others, because we got a lot of great media people, but I think John and I were proud of the fact that we were the original debate show. Before, as good as Tony Kornheiser and Mike Wilbon on there, maybe 10 times better than us, we were the original debate show. So we used to brag, well, you can't do the original again. And John wore it proudly, and so did I. We loved it. We had a lot of great help and a lot of good topics, but John made it go because he was so clever. He was always prepared, and it worked. And it was one of the favorite parts of my 12 years at ESPN, among great people that I worked with. John Clayton's one of the finest human beings I've ever been around. He, Pat wasn't doing well, his wife, and he was always husband first, sports second. But he'll go on, John, it doesn't matter. I tell people, I said, oh, you're in Pennsylvania? Call John. John will be a guest on your show, and he will. Loved talking it, and he had so much pride in this. I miss him every day. It was about a month and a half ago, somebody had said something on a show I was on, and it brought tears to my eyes because people think that we scripted that. We never scripted those arguments. Never. It was competition. We check in, clock in, beat each other's brains in, and clock out and love it. Never. We did not script that. And John was one of my dearest friends. That was real stuff, but it was also respect, because I respected how long he'd done it. And the first time I met him, he was a beat writer in Seattle in my rookie year. And all those years later, we were partners. So while we're proud of it, and we got a lot of great debate shows now, but we're proud that it was an original and it was able to last. And I think we made a lot of people happy, but it couldn't have gone without John Clayton. And I miss him every day. I think about him every day, and what a phenomenal human being. And if you didn't get a chance to meet him, anybody out there, I can tell you that whatever you think good of him, multiply it times about 50. He's missed in the industry and a legend.
Yeah, and I can tell just by the way that you're talking about it.
Love him.
And you mentioned, it wasn't scripted. It was definitely a real debate. Do you think the reason why it was successful, the debates looked heated or sounded heated, what have you, is because there was a level of respect there?
Completely. We'd get on, be sitting on a Sports Center set a lot of times because John's going to different games every week, right? He'd be getting ready to do a feature on a Wednesday in Pittsburgh. And so they put him on satellite. We'd go on, but we'd get on and say, yeah, John, hey, how you doing, buddy? What they do is they'd ask us 10 or 12 questions each, separate from each other, and then they just pick the 4 or 5 they wanted for 4 downs. And so we'd come on and tee it up, but I'd talk to him before, and then we'd talk after, and then during the week. But we never we didn't take it personal because people said, man, you got some zingers. I said, I got zingers. I said, that guy crushed me plenty of times.
Like, I'm trying to keep up with him.
Oh, there's no question. And it worked because when they first approached us, Mark Shapiro and Mark Preisler, who was our senior coordinating producer, we got this like jock versus, bookworm nerd guy, right?
Yeah.
And I mean that affectionately towards John. I said, sure, let's do it. And it just flew. And I don't know why, but it wasn't hot take-ish. John and I talked on there, we were in a debate, and I couldn't have done, it's not in my nature. Now, passionate's different than hot take. I mean, it'd be hard for me to go and say Brady's the 50th best quarterback of all time and try to sell that to you. I could sell he's the best quarterback of all time or best player of all time. So it wasn't a hot take. It was very passionate, but well thought out. And John Clayton I never had to worry when we quarterback talk. He may not know the intricacies of X's and O's like I did, but I don't know the contract status and the deep part of what he knew from a coach telling him about Brady or whoever else. So it worked. And we didn't manufacture disagreeing. Sometimes we agreed on the same subject, and it was passionate, but yes, the respect, and it worked. And for all the people out there, so you guys didn't get along. John and I, it was one of my favorite people of all the years I've been in the industry. And respect was the reason it worked. Two things: respect, preparation, and passion for what we did. And I don't think it can be replaced. While people have tried, I still think that it was original because nobody said, you say this, so he says that. That never happened. And I don't think John or I would have wanted that way, because I'm not good at that when somebody tells me what I have to say.
And that's what I was going to ask about too, kind of off the sports debate topic. What have you noticed over the years and the shift and the change of sports debate shows?
I have so much respect because it's a grind, Jess. Listen, people tell you, well, Stephen A makes all this money. Let me tell you something. And even us, that guy works all the time. It's like, I think about Mike Tirico when he does play-by-play for 8 million things. I always told Mike, I said, it doesn't matter what goes on. Mike Tirico can turn chaos. He's not a debate guy, but Mike can turn chaos and make it feel like, oh, I got this. That's leadership. So I think about all the great talent I've worked with, not me, but like Dan Patrick and Mike Tirico and Scott Van Pelt and Stuart Scott and Rich Eisen. Colin Coward. The list goes on and on about the guys I sat next to, and Hodge and Golick and Schlereth. What a blessing for me, right? Because I just, learning it. But I think when you prepare and have passion, you can do a lot of good work. I think the biggest difference, Jess, is when we were on the set, I could never do a show. I didn't do a show in 12 years, I don't think, without a coat and tie on. Yeah, we put jeans on, but nowadays, open collar, so it's more welcoming. You're not like, it is, and social media has changed it because of the hot takes, but also the opinion. And I'm not saying they're all hot takes. Hell, Dan Orlovsky goes up on there and draws up X's and O's, and it's great football talk. Now, do I think on some that they're saying it and they don't believe it in certain shows across the country? Sure. I think sometimes you do it just to get a rise out of people. Who hasn't? But a lot of respect for them, because you're talking the full gamut of sports. That's what I love most about the debate shows if they're doing them. I don't like the hot take side, or you say this, so I'll say this, so we create this, and we can go on and get all this a viral video. I think when you're going passionate and going at it and getting after it, I think that makes for good conversation, as long as you're not yelling over somebody. But to me, I love it. I'd go back and do those debate shows for one reason. You get to talk all sports. It's not just all football. I love baseball, and I want to talk hoops, and I want to talk college hoops and the gambling aspect and all that. But I think that I have nothing but respect. Some of them can be eye-rolling segments, but when Shannon's getting after it with Stephen A. and Dan chimes in, Orlovsky, and then when Skip Bayless is doing it with Keyshawn, I love debate as long as you believe in it. If you believe in it, I can sell sand to a surfer if I believe in it. But I love the debate shows because it brings up, what did you just say? And sports are emotion, but it's a little different because we couldn't have our phone on the set. Nowadays, you're looking at your phone for what you're going to do, and then you're doing the segment while it's going on. It's crazy how it's just completely flipped. But a lot of respect for the people in this industry. I've learned from a lot better than me. But my whole thing with Jess was be passionate. Tell me something I don't know, meaning try to tell people something they don't know, and be prepared. And if those three things don't cut it, then it probably wasn't for me. But they served me well, and I think they serve most of the guys when you go at it that way and don't just mail it in. And I never mailed it in one day in 12 years. And I think most of them do it that way as well. They don't mail it in. They go and do their job.
and you kind of answered this. I saw that you tweeted out on FS1 to replace Shannon Sharpe essentially, and to go up against or go with Skip Bayless. Why do you think you would be a good replacement on that?
Well,
was it that specific show or just overall?
You know what I did? I said, man, put me on. It's kind of like when you're saying, but I'd love to go on there. Yeah. Sometimes I don't have, hence the unfiltered, where it's like, I try to be respectful. It wasn't even, I knew I wasn't going to get an interview for the job. It would have been great because I think, the original, I do know how to do those debate shows, and I am pretty well versed on matter of fact, at times basketball and baseball and hockey far more than I am football. And that's what you get pigeonholed into. But when I said it, it was kind of just like, yeah, man, let's go. But Shannon's really good, man, because he's also passionate. The reason why is because I'm not afraid to battle, and I'll do it respectfully on any of those shows. But you're not going to be able to beat me down because I'm just as prepared as you. And it's not, I played and you didn't. It's meaning in that situation. But anytime somebody's got passion and it matches my passion, we're in for a hell of a good battle. And sometimes guys can be intimidating and be intimidated by somebody who's been doing it, especially. And Skip is damn good at specializing in that. And with Michael Irvin and that, they got a good thing going on. But I mean, if you're asking, would I in a 7-game series, do I think that I'm bringing the ring home? You're damn right I do. But it'd be fun because I respect what they do, and I do like it. And like I said, with all the different sports talk, I'd be well versed in that. But it wasn't even a fact that I knew I wasn't getting it. It was just kind of thinking out loud, like, man, I would love to have a chance to do that. And it wouldn't matter if it was there or anywhere else. I just like the passion that goes. If I'm up at 6:30 or 7 in the morning like I am on my show, I damn near better do it with energy or you'll lose people. And that's why I think those type of shows and doing games fit me to perfection.
And before I let you go, actually I have 2 more, but you mentioned, you met Clayton when you were a rookie. And so you had a certain relationship with the media back then. As time goes on, how have you noticed your relationship with the media evolving?
I think the reason why I have my relationship with it, I love to do it. I think about like the Adam Schefters and Rappaports who have to, and Jeff's people have to go and get the inside stuff and stories and contracts and who's getting cut. And I think the number one thing for me is my respect for the work that people do. Like watching Dan Patrick interview somebody, I've taken what Dan taught me to interview and talk less and let them talk more and get to the point, which now I hear all the time. Guys asking a 2-paragraph question to the guest. I'm like, get to the guest because Dan taught me that. I mean, it's okay to ask why, how. Yeah. You don't have, and I learned a great deal. I think that it's evolved for me, my respect for it. I think social media and the urgency to get it first as opposed to right bothers me. That part I think bothers me. And now at times you're like, okay, is that hyperbolic? Is that opinion or is that data-driven fact? Which guys like Rappaport and Schefter who do such Woj, because they're breaking stories about draft and all that. That's journalism. What I did, Jess, now what the sideline reporters are doing, we've had a lot of controversy about that the last couple of days. What they're doing, that's journalism too, because you're taking what they said and told you. For me, unless I'm quoting somebody or saying this came from them, it's my opinion. So it's more, those morning shows are more entertainment, or my morning drive radio show. And I recognize that. Listen, I'm not going to pat myself on the back. I know how hard those incredible writers and journalists that write and do blogs and then go on TV. It's my respect for their work, because people think you just turn on a mic and go that don't know it. Yeah. There's a lot. If you're ill prepared, it will show, and you will be found out as that you're not ready for this. And people get found out, and they're out of the business in 3 years. My respect for men, women, hosts, analysts, for what it takes to not be good, but to sustain great, like Mike and Mike did with their morning show. Dan's doing. You gotta get into it every day, and you sacrifice. Well, you're talking sports. Listen, my dad was a blue collar guy. I understand we're getting paid to talk sports, so that's why I don't feel like I'm working at all. But I do know the time it takes to be good at it and to prepare for it. And there's plenty that are far better than me, but I'm not going to be outworked or outpassioned, if that makes sense. But I've learned from people who were great at it, and my respect for the intern and my respect for the 30-year veteran is the same, because I know how hard the PAs at ESPN work to get you your shot sheet and to bust their ass for minimal pay. And I know how hard guys like Dan Patrick or Colin Cowherd work to build their information and all these, to build it. So I think it's my respect. As a player, I respected it too, because I knew I wanted to do it. But I think social media has changed it because we want to be first and we got to be there, and we like takes, and people are getting paid to put a tweet up. So people are thinking about that. I just always say, if you get it right and do it with passion, or at least are passionate about it and are telling me what you know, as opposed to what may happen in a journalistic situation, in an opinion, tell me whatever you want. But my respect goes to, I know how hard those insiders work and how hard analysts work. And I know how hard I've worked over my career to maintain it. And as long as you're working hard with passion, I think you can handle all of it. But I got a lot of respect for the people in this business. I love it.
I am so glad you said that. That was beautifully said. And I wanted to also thank you. You've helped me a lot over the years when I have a football question. You're just so informative because, I'm still adjusting to covering all the sports, and you're always so amazing and responsive. And I wanted to thank you for that, because I want to be better as well. And I know, why not ask those who have played the game or been involved.
Let me just put it simply. I watch your grind and how hard you work, and the time you've put in over the years that we've been friends and able to do this. Nothing but major respect. You don't ever have to apologize or qualify anything. You kill it. And I'm always here, and I really appreciate it. I'm honored that you would say that, and that you just turned to me and I show like there's a million other people you could have on here, but thank you.
Oh, that's so nice. And I'm going to end on a fun question.
Okay.
I heard you were once on your show, you were talking about like Snoop Dogg and stuff, and it got me thinking, who's the most famous contact in your contact list on your phone?
I'm fortunate because everybody in my contact list is more famous than me. Okay. So that's an easy. When you talk about celebrities, like, well, it's like, I remember we were standing on the sideline of a USC game, and it was when USC was playing Ohio State in the big game. Pete Carroll was coaching. And this is a true story, Jess. I felt like I was at a combination Academy Awards, Grammy Awards, PGA Tours, and I mean, everybody from Amari Stoudemire, who didn't go to USC, Mark O'Meara, Denzel Washington, Marcus Allen. I mean, people that didn't even go to either school are standing there. Henry Winkler, and my guy Will Ferrell, all those guys. They're watching the game. I'm thinking, and at one point I'm standing with Marcus Allen, Isaiah Thomas, Detroit Piston Isaiah Thomas, the all-time great, and Denzel Washington pregame. And I look and I'm thinking to myself, that Sesame Street song, and Denzel I had to have him say, my man, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, one of these things is not like the other. Up and down the sideline I'm that Sesame Street guy. These are all stars. I happen to be the fill-in. My contact list probably, and I guess from Dan Patrick and Charles Barkley is one, but probably the biggest one is Adam Sandler, because he's a very dear friend. He's the guy, and I love, now that's another guy. You mentioned John Clayton, loyalty. Whatever you think about Sandler that's good, multiply it times a million. You want him to be around your kids. Yeah. You want him to laugh with you. I mean, I just am forged a friendship after being in bench warmers and training him for longest yard and being in house money. But more than that, he's a guy that if I called him and he's sitting courtside at a Laker game or text him, he'll text back in minutes. And I'm like, I do it just to tell. Well, first I used to do it just to see what he's doing. But he has treated me like gold, and my kids, and probably him. And you think about, okay, global name value, Charles, him. I mean, there's a lot, like I said, Warren, there's a ton of them in there. Yeah. It's easy to find somebody far more famous than me because I'm not even a household name in my own home. So, but probably Sandler. And if we're talking wallets and checkbooks, I would say he's probably here, and he doesn't even care. Cargo, yeah. He doesn't even care. That's what makes him so special, that he'd treat you, Jess, the same way he'd treat Kevin James standing next to him. That's who he is. And so that's part, some of the greatest opportunities and fun in my life has been sitting in a locker room with great teammates, sitting at a movie set, watching those guys do their work, or being around them and just watching the great ones operate. And I've learned valuable, but I cherish the friendships. And the older I get, the more I realize I don't take them for granted, because over the last handful of years, we've lost friends and people that you say, no way, that guy's never dying. And they have. And it's not just that, but guys like Sandro, who treat you like gold and has no reason to other than he's a good man. That's how I judge people, how he treats others that can't do anything for him. There's nothing I could do for him other than teach him how to throw a football, and I loved it. I just tell him that because of all that, just put me in about 2 or 3 more movies. I love that residual income.
And I'm not just kissing your ass. I love House Bunny. It's on my all-time
favorite. Thank you.
I'm not just saying that either. It's
we had a good time, and she was, I mean, you want to talk about funny.
Oh, yeah.
And brilliant. She is a brilliant, brilliant person. And we just had a blast, man. So I I'm in a profession, and I'm built. You get involved in a lot of things. One thing my whole life I'll be grateful for is the relationships through good and bad that have forged and stayed there. And I'm forever grateful for those guys and those gals that have supported me all the way through.
Definitely. Sean, you've been amazing. Thanks so much.
Jess, thank you. Keep up the great work. I'm honored.
That was Sean Salisbury. I loved that conversation. I'm so juiced. I loved every bit of it, because when you think of these guys, when they go from, a very well-known collegiate player to figuring things out in the NFL, and he said so himself after he retired, just months later, he had his ESPN contract. So he had not a lot of time to adjust to his new realm in sports media. I love how outspoken and real he is. He's so passionate about what he does. And of course, his beautiful friendship with the late John Clayton and the beginning of the sports debate, I guess, era, if you will. And we all know that we love to hate some of those talking heads. It is what it is, but it was cool to pull back the curtain and get a view of what happens behind the scenes and what he possibly could bring to another sports debate show. So maybe we'll see him in the near future on another headlining show. You never know. Thanks so much, Sean, for stopping by. Producer Philip, always filling up my cup with extra help, because Lord knows Mama needs it. So excited to be here once again and thankful for this platform. I hope you guys have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Make sure you're following all of our stuff over at Awful Announcing and the comeback, everything you can imagine we're covering over there, folks. Once again, this is Jessica Kleinschmidt for Short and to the Point, and we'll see you next time.
Want even more short and to the point? Follow Jessica at KleinschmidtJD and head over to thecomeback.com and awfulannouncing.com.